Hey everybody, it's Lindsay J back with another video, and today I am so excited because, of course, we have another podcast episode. So please make sure you guys subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post every Tuesday at around 6 a.m. PST, so make sure you guys turn on post notifications so that you can get notified every time that I post. It truly helps me out when you guys engage, so please make sure you leave a comment and check out all of my other social media platforms in the description box down below. There you guys will be able to find me on some of my other more frequented platforms. Instagram is my number one platform, so if you guys want to reach out to me, if you want to message me and you really want to get back to me, please make sure you go and follow me on Instagram. Everything is the same. It's at It's Lindsay J. So I'll be excited to see you guys on over there. Without further ado, let's get straight into the podcast episode. Dear Diary, they call it love, but I'm starting to wonder how much of what we call love is really just fear in disguise. We say, I love you, but what we mean is, I love you as long as you behave. We call it devotion, but really it's debt. We call it affection, but really it's accounting. I think about all the ways people keep score: the favors, the posts, the anniversaries, the silent trades. I gave you this, now you owe me that. It makes me sick sometimes, the way we dress up, bargaining and pretending it's intimacy. Maybe that's why so many of us feel starved even when we're in relationships, because deep down we don't want to be an investment, we want to be a home. But we're raised to earn, perform, and barter for belonging. And in that training, we forget love doesn't live in ledgers, love doesn't keep receipts. Maybe the real question is this: if love requires proof, was it ever love at all? XOXO, LJ. So I guess what we have to start with is actually knowing about what transactional love actually looks like. So I vote we define it and then we expose it. So basically, conditional affection is like when you're saying that if you behave a certain way, then I will love you, which kind of mirrors authoritarian parenting styles, kind of like Baumrind, and then also in the 1960s. But also, this type of parenting style has also been linked to anxious attachment styles later in their lives. Something which I've also heard a lot of people talk about is scorekeeping. A 2017 Journal of Personality and Social Psychology study found that people in tit for tat relationships report significantly lower satisfaction. And I think a lot of the times, people who are in tit for tat type relationships don't even really know that they're in one like that. But it's pretty much all of this subconscious resentment that got built up, and it's eventually just creates this energy that eventually turns into dissatisfaction because you're constantly resenting your partner while simultaneously loving them. And that's a very uncomfortable, contradictory experience to be in. So, that's why tit for tat relationships are really not that fulfilling whatsoever. And that's why it's well, why are you in the relationship? Is it because you're afraid of being alone? Because honestly, I think that's exactly what that is. People also talk about people pleasing a lot, and it's said that it's often rooted in fawning trauma responses, not love, but just actually self-preservation. So instead of being yourself, you're actually acting in ways so that the other individual will either like you more, or because you feel like they will be happier if you act in such a way. That is all people pleasing. It's not beneficial to the individual who's doing it, and that is a massive difference from compassion and empathy, because some people will confuse empathy and compassion with people pleasing, and I'm like, no, these are not the same things. When you're highly empathetic or highly compassionate, it's not at the detriment of your own emotions and well-being in the same way that people pleasing is. With people pleasing, you're specifically changing who you are in order to fit the mold that you think is acceptable and desired for the individual person who's in front of you. That is people pleasing. Then people are talking about love languages as well, but now I would say that love languages are also being misused in a way. Sometimes people are using that as leverage, where it's okay, I gave you a gift, and so now you owe me physical intimacy. This is also a big issue that we face, especially in dynamics where a man may be financially well off and they're used to a certain dynamic of dating. They tend to expect things. And I don't like this type of dynamic. That's why I don't even feed into it personally. I will ask the most wealthiest men to go on the most cheapest dates ever. And it's because if I cannot have a conversation with them just like sitting on a park bench, we will literally never enjoy a high value restaurant. It just, I can't do it. Like when I think about like going to a high value restaurant, I want it to be an experience, not just because I'm at a high value restaurant, but because I'm with good company. So if I just go with some random dude, all I'm going to be thinking about is, man, I can't wait to come back here with one of my friends, or I can't wait to come back here with somebody more meaningful. So instead of doing all that, I would rather we just meet person to person and see how it is, but that's not super common anymore because a lot of times people value finances and they value performative affection and performative courtship without actually understanding the real fundamentals of what makes a relationship successful. So they go for the performance of love instead of what it actually is. And that's kind of the danger in where we are as a culture, I would say. And there was also a study in 2021, and it was actually a bunch of surveys. And it's about modern relationships. And it said that 62% of millennials admitted to tracking who does more in their relationship, which is so bad. So bad. I don't understand why. I just don't even understand why people think like that. It's like how are you like living your life and then keeping a scoreboard in your head at the same time? Like how are you able to do that? Because for me, I'm like I see something, I do something, I get over it, I'm done. Like there's no going back after it's been closed and finished and figured out. And I feel like our pop culture especially doesn't even help us. Like now you have moments where it's like we're a team or we're coming together often means that we're actually competitors and keeping emotional tabs on each other. Like how many times do we also listen to music that talks about women or men in derogatory ways? I mean, that doesn't actually benefit our culture or our society in any way whatsoever. Like, I get it. It could be fun to do all that and sing all that when you want to get lit and turn up and everything, but at the same time I do think that it subconsciously impacts the way we perceive relationships because we have now a bunch of celebrities who are like advocating for independence and individualism, but in a way that's hyper individualist, and that's actually unhealthy and toxic. Because like this is my other part of the theory. It's like you got to think celebrities are really just normal people. So celebrities who have like mental disorders like depression are just normal sick patients, really, in reality. And you guys want to take the influence of sick patients and you believe what they say to be accurate, healthy, and just. I just think that's something we should reconsider strongly. I don't think we should allow people who don't actually have their lives together deciding what is cool and what's not. And I don't know if that world will ever exist, really, but it's just how I feel, at least. I also just hate so much how, like, all of our most popular music will be downgrading the other sex. It's just like people talking about how they can get a bunch of people or, like, just do all of these things and how being emotionally distant and disconnected is, like, cool somehow. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand why we would want to glamorize this idea of being hyper individualist to the point of where you're actually now starting to subconsciously lack empathy and you're simultaneously dehumanizing other people in the process of not accepting your own vulnerabilities. Because if you were to sit with your own vulnerabilities, it would make you uncomfortable and you don't want to sit in that discomfort. So instead of acknowledging the fact that you may be wrong and that you may not know something, you're choosing to stay silent and stay stuck in a situation that's not serving you. And I don't think that is a good thing whatsoever. And I swear to you, that's exactly what our music preaches. It's like, you have hurt people who create art from a hurt place. And then that art that comes from pain is used as a measurement for success, health, happiness. But the irony is the happiness everybody's trying to attain was curated in pain. So you're not actually trying to attain success and happiness. You're trying to curate the performance of success and happiness. Because in reality, a lot of the times it's just regular people who are super unhappy and turn that unhappiness into something that they could monetize off of. And, because of that, that's why I'm saying if their only purpose is to build for themselves and to do absolutely nothing for the rest of the world, then it's like, can you really trust their judgment on what is right and wrong? I would say no. But at the same time, though, I will say I have like quite a weird way of looking at the world sometimes. So I also think that like transactional love is also just a danger to our entire society's dating climate, because in my personal experience, there's also a lot of dudes who like be successful and they're like worried about dating me because I guess they're worried that I'm gonna like take something for them or do something with whatever it is they have that they don't want something bad happening to. Usually it's money or something, which is so stupid to me, but I get it. I've seen some bad cases, but personally, I'm just like, it's super annoying. I wish that, people could just like be chill, allow themselves to, fall into things, fall into each other, and not have it be such a big deal. I don't understand. My experience when it came to bonds and connections was much more European based. So, like, this American culture is really weird. I really don't like it. I hate it a lot, actually. I wish I was living in Europe still. Definitely don't want to be here. But, it's just people are so cold. They're so closed off. They don't care about each other. And everybody's glued to their phone. Nobody knows how to just hang out and chill. It's always like technology is always involved, indirectly, directly. It's very frustrating. So I'm like, we need to start finding a way to like stop creating these transactional moments so that we can maintain the humanity and actually grow, but I guess we'll have to see. But transactional love isn't intimacy, it's fear with a bow tie. So now I want to talk about the psychology behind transactional love. I feel like transactional love is something that is learned, and it's also a survival instinct. I also feel like our childhood is kind of what shapes this belief alongside society expectations, especially when it comes to gender norms and like just, those types of things. In attachment theory, they say that kids raised with conditional affection often grow into adults who equate love with performance. So if you ever felt like you had conditional love, like you weren't loved if you were yourself or if you did something wrong, you were only loved when you complied, when you did everything right, when you listened, even when it harmed you, that is conditional love. And sometimes when that's what you knew and that's how you grew up, then you bring that into your adulthood and you start to believe that you have to perform, or the individuals who are with you need to perform in order to show up into the relationship, which is just inaccurate at the end of the day. Then you have a scenario where children of narcissistic parents will often learn to barter, which means that they'll comply for attention. Mentioned this before. It's like a whole concept of doing what is told to do in order to be liked or approved, similar to that of like people pleasing essentially. And that can be so dangerous because again, it leads into an entire society that constantly talks about the expectations in relationship dynamics. We talk about the sexes. We talk about, it's like everything, sexuality. But in reality, the foundation of any relationship is love and respect. So it's like, why don't we start focusing more on harnessing healthy, long-term committed relationships than discussing toxic ones and how to guard ourselves from each other? And I think the disconnect is that most people aren't willing to go that deep. They're afraid of vulnerability and they're afraid of sitting in the discomfort because they don't want to acknowledge the pain they experienced. For some reason, I've noticed a lot of people do not want to recognize their own suffering. They would rather internalize the suffering, make themselves feel flawed, and then change their own behavior instead of, keeping that grounded mentality regardless of the turmoils they may experience. How they say hurt people. It's not easy to be kind. Kindness is a conscious choice because, you always are being vulnerable. It takes a certain level of vulnerability to show kindness even to strangers. And on top of that, it's just, it shows your character because not everybody has the perfect day every day. I mean, we all face our own daily struggles. So when people show up positively or they show up, in a kind way, we shouldn't be taking that for granted. We shouldn't be feeling entitled to that or like, just overlooking that because People don't have to be nice, and we always talk about hurt people. So why don't we give recognition to the people who are hurt but don't hurt people? Why don't we ever talk about that? Why don't we focus more on that and the strength that it takes to be that way? Why are we constantly reiterating the source of our pain? Hurt people. Well, yeah, if you continue to say that mantra, then you speak it into existence. But if we start to all talk about how hurt people who are kind are strength, then we start to change the narrative of how we perceive the situation. And it steers into a way that's more positive, because instead of feeling like you are the one who has to change after being mistreated, you start to realize that the person who needs the changing is them. If somebody wronged you and you can confidently say that you did nothing wrong, then why is it that you feel the need to change? Shouldn't it be the person who did something bad? Isn't the bad person the one who needs to change, not you? And if that's the case, then why are you allowing for somebody who disrespected you and who isn't realistically even worth your care dictate how you show up in the world, treat others, and live the rest of your life? You deserve a better life than one that keeps you limited and keeps you stuck in cycles that don't serve you, simply because of the fact that you're functioning in this transactional, fear-based mentality. The only reason we want transactional love is because if we have that transactional love, we feel as though we may get the validation we're searching for, because we're outputting something we feel is valuable and then getting back this admiration and love in return. But it doesn't actively impact us in the way that people are hoping that it will. In reality, you're attracting partners that do everything that you want them to do, but they're leaving you unfulfilled, because real love and real partnership is somebody that challenges you, somebody who makes you question your beliefs, the way that you live your life, the way that you do things. You want somebody who acts as a mirror to your life, not somebody who says yes to everything. It won't benefit you, it won't help you evolve, and eventually it will lead to the downfall of that very same relationship. And that's just not great. People, we have like this whole ideology of so many people who are like desperate to settle down by a certain age. And of course, like, I'm the same way. I definitely hate being single. I wish I was like already, taken and done for the rest of my life, but I'm not. But at the same time, I'm not going to be desperate and just jump into a relationship to be in a relationship because I'm worried about a time clock. That's not what we should be worrying about. We should be worrying about our own happiness, our own well-being, our own desires, because even if you are lonely and you get the person, if you get the wrong person, you're messing with your future. And right now it may seem comfortable to be with somebody who's not serving you, or somebody who's not good enough for you, and you know that they're not good enough for you because you're clearly just waiting. And it's just, you can't do that. When somebody disrespects you, like, for example, if you're with somebody who calls you mean names, or who disrespects you by being unfaithful or being deceptive, all those types of things, like, you don't want to go back to that, nor do you want to feel like you're the one who has to change when somebody else acts like that. Do you seriously want to become the person that hurt you? If the answer is no, then you have to force yourself to endure the pain and sit with the suffering before you can come out a better person. And that's hard to do, especially because ego and pride tells us that we don't want to admit that we suffered or failed or lost in any way. So people build up these defenses. They build up these walls, because instead of admitting that they chose the wrong person, or admitting that the person they thought loved them hurt them, instead of admitting that, they would rather protect their pride and ego and justify and create excuses for the toxicity and turmoil that happened in their previous partnership. That's where projection ends up coming. Projection only happens when somebody has not had that ego death or that pride death mentality, where they're ready to face their flaws and insecurities upon someone else instead of alone. Like, it takes an ego and pride death in order for that to occur. And I think ego deaths are kind of what leads into an emotional intelligence, or an awakening, essentially, for your own mind's sake. I feel like that's kind of where you start to see that happening. And that's why, a great way to test yourself to see kind of where you fall on this equation is to ask yourself, who did you have to be to feel loved as a child? And are you still that performer today? Because you don't want to be someone who is the way that they are for everyone else. You want to be who you are for yourself. So if the way that you're being treated, the way that you're acting, the way that you're living your life isn't authentic to what you want or who you are, then that's a sign for you to take back your life and start to go back to who you are, become grounded in your truth of who you are, what you're capable of, and all of those things. Because again, everybody deserves a really happy life, and the lives that we want are absolutely attainable and possible. But sometimes we have to be willing to sit in discomfort and try and brainstorm creative solutions to get out of our suffering. Especially in America, like, we forget that there's like a massive world outside of America. So it's like, if you're really struggling here, just move, man. There's so many other more affordable, beautiful, amazing places that you could go to. This is like not the only place that exists in the world. So like, that's a perfect example. Why don't you just go somewhere, do things that, will bring you the life that you want? But instead, people will rather stick to these cycles or patterns or systems or ways of living their lives or ways of healing that in reality aren't actually healing. It's fear and ego and pride dressing up as productivity. But in reality, you're just distracting yourself from what's really going on. And the longer you distract yourself from the problem, the longer it will be there and the bigger it will get. There's no way to just counteract and avoid issues like that. Avoidance only makes things worse. And so many times people will think that they're making things better by not confronting things, but that's just simply not the truth. It's actually healthier, better, and more secure to just be out there and tell the truth and be honest with people even when it hurts. Like, that's the best way to be secure. That's the best way to be healthy. Living your life any other way is just living your life inauthentically. And I just want you to remember that, like, when love was once conditional, your inner child becomes a hustler, not a lover. And that is exactly why it's important we recognize these things, because you also got to think that the psychology of scarcity, like, studies have literally shown that the scarcity mindset, which is fear of loss, drives people into transactional patterns, and I get that too, because on like the women's side, so many women, like, I'm not gonna lie, I know a lot of gold diggers. Like, I know a lot of people who are, only with guys for financial reasons. There's no way they would be willing to stay with a guy who has nothing. And I'm not saying that's good or bad necessarily. I think there are some bads in that mentality, but it's not my business. But again, their fear is missing out on the luxuries of life. So that's a perfect example of how, like, a fear-based of missing out, like, mindset is what brings people to a transactional relationship. Because, like, let's say you created this idea from a young age of what the perfect relationship looks like. If you grow up, once you realize that life is actually much more complex and disorganized than what you think, you may still hold on to that ideology of what a relationship should be like. So you start searching for someone that fits the picture you want. Not the person you need, but the person that you just want. And there's a massive difference between a person that you want and a person that you need. The person that you need is the one you keep. The person that you want is the one that you maybe have in the moment, but if they don't do things that help your needs or fulfill your needs, then that's all they will be, is a moment, not your future. So prioritize the person who prioritizes your needs, who cares about your feelings and wants to actually know what is going on in your real life. Those are the people you prioritize. Everybody else is just nothing. It's meaningless. I mean, even if they say they care, it's still meaningless, because at the end of the day, you're getting absolutely nothing from it, right? So, now you have all these people who are like, well, I don't want to miss out on the perfect relationship, so I'm going to have this checklist of requirements so that every person I date goes through this checklist, and, if they don't fit, oh, oops, that's bad. If they do, fantastic. I'm willing to give and take on certain superficial aspects, sometimes appearance, sometimes height, all types of stuff, in order to attain the lifestyle that I want. For men, it's like, I want a beautiful woman who's going to be next to me and do all the things that I want. So that's what they get, especially if that other woman is willing to be, like, I don't know. It's just something I've noticed, Like, then there's all these women who are like, I want to live a luxurious lifestyle, but they don't want to create it for themselves. So instead, they would rather find a man who already has it so that they can enjoy the life with them in their luxuries. Again, nothing wrong with this. I'm just saying the dynamic. And there's a lot of danger because it's like, okay, but are you guys actually fulfilled with each other or enjoying a lifestyle with a roommate? Are you enjoying the lifestyle because you created this experience, or are you enjoying it because you love each other and the experience came as a representation of that love you have for one another? Because there's a difference between having a roommate and being in love with someone. And if you feel like you're more like a roommate to the person you're supposed to love every single day, that should tell you that the relationship you chose is unfulfilling and that you need to get out of it and also change your way of thinking, change your mindset, and change the structure and the rules that you have around dating, because those rules and those structures clearly did not work the first time. And the only thing that can happen to make a difference in that is change. And not changing the world, because you can't change the world. You can only change you. So you need to learn from the experience, say what worked, what didn't work, and what can I do in the future to be better and to show up better for my future person. These are serious questions we should be asking each other and that we should be talking about, because a lot of times people are just aimlessly dating. They think they're dating with intention when in reality they're dating casually. Nowadays, dating casually has become so normalized that we have a term for it, situationships, which is crazy. That didn't even exist before a few years ago, if that. That's so sad that we have to create an entire new form of relationship just to justify getting around emotions. Am I seriously the only one who finds that so psychotic? We're curating a word around our inability to bond with one another because of fears and insecurities around vulnerability and abandonment. We've created a term for that. And it's not a term that's even used in psychology or in attachment theory. It's just a term we use to describe a dynamic that's unhealthy, that continues to repeat itself within our society and our culture. And everybody's miserable about it, but yet nobody does anything. And I just think that that's very interesting. Practice what you preach. If you want the dating pool to be better, look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself if you're even healed. Would you actually date yourself? And be realistic. Don't say, yeah, because I'm pretty and I'm nice. No, be realistic. What do you actually have to offer? There's so many women who don't want to be asked that, but it's you don't want to be asked that because you have nothing realistically to offer, and you know that. And instead of being a woman and deciding to build a life that makes a high value man want to be with you, instead of creating that for yourself, you would rather say it's disrespectful for a man to ask you that question to begin with. I would understand it better if we were in the traditional world where it was back in the day where women were just expected to be at home. That would be a little bit different because you're bringing the home. But in the modern world and the modern society, that should just be a generalized question. Because if a man wants a traditional woman, you can't judge him for that. You just need to move on to the next man. So if a man asks you hey, what do you have to offer? There's nothing wrong with that. Don't feel disrespected, because if you're a real woman, you have a list of amazing reasons. I can think of a million reasons, a million things that I can bring to a relationship outside of peace, but peace is number one, okay? I provide a man so much peace, emotional safety. I mean, I'm somebody he can talk to about everything and anything under the sun, and I'm super non-judgmental. I'm incredibly supportive. I will ride or die for your biggest dream, and literally in the extent that it's my dream too now. I'm financially literate. I make my own money. I have a lot of things going on in my life. I'm building a brand. I own a company. I do my podcast. I have things going on. I add value to a relationship, and it's deeper than just showing up as a beautiful woman who spends time with you. There's nothing wrong with asking that question. I'm also very traditional, so I prefer the idea of cooking and cleaning at home and staying at home and having a man come home to a beautiful house. And I like that dynamic. So I would rather a man ask me that question, because if he cannot handle the life that I want and the version of who I want to be in a relationship, then I don't want to waste my time getting connected to this person. So if you have a hard time answering that question, then what are you doing in the dating world? This goes for men and women, by the way. I'm just a woman, so I'm talking woman to woman, but for the men too, what do you actually bring to a relationship? Because finances is not enough. Like, if a man tells me that the only thing he can bring to the relationship is finances, I'm not going to be attracted to him after that. Like, what in the world else do you have to offer? As I told you before, I'm building my own brand. I'm financially literate. I'm doing my own thing. I don't need your finances, but I'm choosing you because I want you, because I think you are an incredible person. And I think that is what the real foundation of a relationship is. You shouldn't be with somebody who needs you to fuel their lifestyle. You need to be with somebody who chooses you despite the fact that they don't need you. That's real love. How can you possibly trust that someone needs you if they would lose their entire lifestyle if you were gone? You can't. I mean, I've literally dated men who are like flat broke, and like they would live at my place. But then once they started becoming borderline disrespectful, and I checked them, because I do not play with that shit. I do not accept that. I leave. I don't stay. I don't ignore red flags. You guys can joke about that. You guys can joke about that in the songs, talk about that. I don't do that. When I see red flags, I leave. I do not wait. I'm never going to be that girl who ignores red flags. It was a waste of my time. I'm way too high value to be sitting around playing games with little boys. It has no real value to me. I have other shit to do. So because of that, I would rather get straight to the point, and I think that's important. I think we should have more people like that. You can't just be offering finances. You need to show me that you are going to show up consistently. You're emotionally intelligent. You can have hard conversations. You're caring. You're going to be there for me when I need somebody. You're going to support my dreams too. You're going to have your own ambitions and desires as a person, and you're going to allow me to support you in those passions. It's not enough to just say, oh, I want to provide for you, and all you have to offer is a house. Like, that's it. Nothing else. Like, I'm sorry, but I am the house. So I don't need you to provide me one when I already am one. What I was trying to do is create a new one together, because we can both do that. But I will swear to you on my life, they become borderline disrespectful. I check them and they start to be really nice, because they know that if they don't have me, they have nowhere else to go. That is not a partner that you want. That's a person who has a weird attachment to you because you are literally fueling their entire life. Without you, they have nothing. That's not a trustworthy partnership. It's not equal. There's no real partnership happening. It's a one-sided dynamic where one person is probably parenting the other, especially if the woman is the one who is successful in providing the home and it's the man who's living there, not paying or doing anything. Yeah, typically those dudes don't actually respect their partner. They're just like doing it so that they can have a place to stay and they can have somebody who comforts them and makes them feel nice. But in reality, they don't actually respect you, because they themselves are at too low of a place in their life to truly respect any woman that loves them. And that is so deep and it's sad, but I swear to you guys on my life, this is a real psychological phenomenon. Sometimes when people are like deep down in their luck, if they're insecure and unhealthy with their down in their luck, sometimes they cannot respect the individuals who love them as they are, because they themselves feel as though they are unworthy. So if somebody loves them, they're like, okay, well, if you can love someone like me and I'm like at such a low place, that means that your judgment probably isn't that good. So, I mean, you're like great and all, and I really like you. I'm going to utilize all the things that you have, but I don't know if I truly respect you, because I don't even respect your decision to date me right now. So how can I respect you? Not all guys are like this. Or all people, women could be like this too. I'm not saying all people are like this, but I'm saying that this is a very common dynamic. And it also does happen to men a lot, I will say, because a lot of women tend to need men in order to survive, which I think is extremely unhealthy, especially when there's outlets to make money and fund yourself. It's just empowering to be able to build your own thing outside of your partner. I mean, I like that for myself. It's nothing to do with them and everything to do with my desire to be independent outside of my relationship and maintain my autonomy while in one at the same time. So I'm like, this happens to them all the time. They find women that they really care about, then they invest all their money into it, because I don't know. I don't know why anybody would ever do that. I think that's the stupidest thing ever. Don't invest all of your money into someone. And if anybody ever lets you do that, it's just they don't care about you. They care about the fact that you're fueling their lifestyle. They don't actually care about you, because a person that cares about you doesn't allow you to overexert yourself. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. A person that cares about you doesn't allow you to utilize all of your resources in a way that doesn't actually benefit both of you. It just doesn't happen. If they're not bringing anything to the equation and you're bringing everything, and their lifestyle comes crashing down if you're not maintaining it, then how can you trust that they ever truly cared about you? Like, do you see what I'm saying here? I don't want to love someone out of necessity. I want to be able to be independent. I want to be able to feel like I can do whatever I want on my own. And that gives me the power to choose who I decide to be with. Because instead of coming from this mindset of I need to find somebody who can help me live this life because I need help all the time, sometimes I feel that way. But it's not really coming from a financial standpoint. It's more like emotional support. I need somebody who's going to be here with me, like, in real life. I just need that. I hate being alone, not having anybody to cuddle. It's just so annoying and monotonous. I don't understand why people actually enjoy this. And I don't understand how they could possibly enjoy situationships either. I think they're the dumbest creation that modern romance has created, honestly. But just keep that in mind, y'all. Just keep that in mind, because, man, too many times people are just getting into all these messy things because of the fact that they have this inability to just be real. And I just don't understand why people decide to waste not just their own time, but the other people who are in the equation too. So now we're going to talk about the performative economy of modern love. So in social media metrics, in 2022, Pew Research said that 48% of young adults said they feel pressure to post their relationships to prove its legitimacy, which is very interesting to me. I mean, honestly, based off of how the modern rules work, I do kind of agree to that. If I have a partner who has a social media platform, as somebody who also has one, if they're not posting me, we can't be together. Like, that's just, for me, that is a red flag. I'm not going to do that. I don't care what your brand is. I don't care what your image is supposed to be. I don't care what girls are on your phone. If I can post you on my Instagram and you can't post me on yours, we're not compatible. It's not going to happen, because what are you trying to hide? I don't want somebody who wants their image to be wanted, if that makes sense. Because the only type of person who doesn't want that stuff out there is either somebody who's very private about their lifestyle, which is fine. But typically, if I date someone like that, it's like they have like 200 followers, But even then, I feel a little offended if they don't post me, because that's their friends and family. And if their family knows me, then it's like, okay, well, why aren't you posting us at our cute little things? Unless it's like they're the kind of person who legitimately never posts, like once a year type shit. But in general, though, I do agree with that based off of how things go online right now. I think it's important that it's said out loud, especially with entertainment world and how it goes. There's a lot of people who are feeling like if you don't post to me, you don't love me, Again, though, like, here's the thing. Part of me does kind of agree with this, but at the same time, though, if you have to ask somebody in order to do all these things, or like pressure someone and do all these things, like, maybe you should just accept that they don't take you that seriously. Somebody who wants to share you, somebody who wants to flaunt you will do so. And if that's the type of person that you want, go find that person. If you know that you are with someone who's more on like the private side or whatever, and you know that they're like that, you know that when you're getting into this, you can't expect somebody to change because you want them to. You need to accept somebody as they are right now in that moment. And if that kind of person doesn't really post and isn't going to post you, essentially, then you have to think to yourself, do I really like this person like that? Or do I just like the idea of having this person? And because for me, like, I like guys who are very proud to have me. I want them to talk about me, to show me, to, live it up. But I don't always date guys who are that into social media. And I also don't date guys typically who are like entertainers. Like, I have, but that's just so much. It's just so much. They're so extra for no reason. I prefer people who like literally don't even have any social media platforms. So that's what I'm saying. Then you have dating apps, which I really feel like are designed like pitch decks, and like people just become products at this point, and it's so easily accessible that I think the illusion of options makes people convinced that they can just easily find someone. But it's actually really hard to find somebody that you make a genuine connection with. So it's like when you find that, you should do anything in your power to keep it. But like nowadays in our generation, people don't even know what devotion is anymore. They kind of run away at the slightest inconvenience, or like people are just believing that they should build things up alone. And to me, that's just nonsensical, but it's pretty common, unfortunately. And I think sometimes it's really just that illusion. It's like if like the likelihood of you meeting somebody that you deeply connect with again is extremely low if you're the one self-sabotaging the relationship. If you're somebody who's like secure and capable of love and all those things, it's hard to find somebody you genuinely connect with, but you're capable of doing so. People who are like self-sabotaging and like worrying and all those things, like, you need to calm down and stop thinking that it's easy to find someone else, or you should let somebody be with someone else or be open with people. Like, no, you need to claim what you want and get what is rare, instead of throwing it away like it means nothing. And I want to bring up the whole like return on investment ideology, because again, like finances is now a big part of it, like financial convenience, or like for optics. Like sometimes people will stay together because they don't want people to see that they broke up, or like have a whole thing. And it's just so extra. Like, just be real with yourself and with others, because your life will be better when you do that. It's so hard lying to the world and to other people, because you have to consistently make sure that you're maintaining the lie. So you have to create an entire life around that. And that's, really complicated. It's interesting too, because Erich Fromm, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but The Art of Loving in 1956 had literally warned that love under capitalism risks being a commodity, which makes sense. It's like, as we start to make more money, as we start to care more about our appearances and the way we are perceived by others, it's like, how are relationships any different from all the other things we buy and curate to attain a certain image? It's like you're no longer looking for someone that is good for you. You're looking for someone you think that you want, or you think that you need, and pushing away the real ones because you're afraid to admit that it takes more than what you have in order to maintain a successful relationship. And a lot of people aren't willing to bridge that gap between where they're at and where they need to be in order to have a successful relationship, which is why they will settle subconsciously for something that's easier and more convenient. But in doing so, down the line, it leads to divorces. It leads to resentment. It leads to animosity. It leads to deceit and betrayal and affairs and all that stuff. And, it's all stored up resentment. You can't, if you don't have respect or love for your partner anymore because you're not satisfied in the relationship, or you decided that you were going to settle for somebody out of convenience because you were like, hey, I might as well just stay with this person. I've known them a long time anyways. And like, there's a massive difference between curating a life and building one with the right person. So I just want people to remember that fact, and to remember that, like, love should not be transactional, and yet it is so much. I understand for some people, like if you're traditional, it makes more sense that you're transactional, because traditional relationships are relatively transactional by default. If you have a man who's working really hard and he has like a super serious job, like at least for me, then as a traditional woman, I want to cook and clean, so when he comes home after making all the money that provides for us, he can come home to a place that feels safe, calm, peaceful, lovely. It motivates him to work harder for himself and for me and for us. And that is ultimately what helps to fuel the relationship's success. But when you settle for somebody who doesn't make you feel those extreme emotions, you are, pretty much just missing out on your true potential, because you don't have somebody pushing you or challenging you to be your best self or your best version of yourself. You have somebody who goes along with the flow, and that's ultimately not a great partner to be with. you gotta be with somebody who challenges your ideologies, who challenges your methodologies when it comes to how you approach life. Because if you don't, you're going to live in a life where you do not evolve, where you do not progress, where you do not feel fulfilled, because you're not allowing yourself to grow, because you don't think you're capable of it when you actually were this whole time. It's already in you, but you sometimes have to re-unlock that door that's been hidden for so long after being hurt. But it already exists within you. You just need to find your way back to center. And the longer you take to get back to center, the harder it will be to find your way back home. So just remember that. So because transactional love is the equivalence of control, that means that we subconsciously are manipulating the relationship to fit ourselves. We're not actually going after what is good for us. And there's so many people who use these really unhealthy and toxic patterns to try and punish their partner in situations where they feel mistreated. And for example, you have the guilt tripping, the withholding, the silent treatment, jealousy play games. It's like these types of dynamics are extremely normalized in our culture now. And that concerns me because I don't want us to normalize, mistrust, betrayal. I don't want to normalize those types of things. I want devotion, something that is very meaningful and special. We just have way too many people out there taking for granted the people that they have and not realizing that it's hard to find people that you genuinely connect with. So when you do find someone like that, you should absolutely hold on to it and try and see where it can go, even if it's scary. And sometimes manipulation is extremely subconscious, and it also masquerades as care. Sometimes people think that they're caring for you when in reality they're actually trying to morph you and mold you into a version of you that fits their, not necessarily expectations or persona, just fits their narrative, essentially, of how a partner should be or how a partner should look or do or act or whatever. And sometimes these beliefs are extremely unrealistic, too. And I've also noticed that there are gendered patterns. Studies by the APA in 2020 showed that women often use emotional labor as leverage, and men often use financial provision. And both are manipulative, especially when they're conditional. And so when we start to notice these toxic patterns, we start to see that people are being way too controlling in their relationships. They have a lot of unrealistic expectations because they may not have been modeled what a healthy relationship looks like. So instead of learning about what that actually looks like, they rely on these fantasies or ideologies that are sometimes unrealistic and too optimistic when it comes to a committed long-term relationship. And those unrealistic expectations in a relationship will sometimes masquerade as high standards, but it's not actually high standards, it's self-sabotage, because you're now limiting your ability to be with someone who truly fulfills you, possibly because you're afraid of the version of yourself that they bring out. But sometimes that version of you is exactly who you need to be in order to make it to the next chapter of your life. And, people don't fall into our world by accident. There's always a reason behind why people come into our lives, why they impact us the way they do. And so it's up to us to decide whether or not we allow it to turn into trauma or if we let it turn into a learning moment where we can learn from the situation, grieve the situation, and move on from it with peace, acknowledging the fact that we did everything that we could and we did everything in our power to build and grow after that, and despite that or because of that. Even Nietzsche's, I never know how to say his name, guys, that's so embarrassing. He's a philosopher, I think it's Nietzsche, warned that even love can be will to power when rooted in insecurity. Okay, so he was spotting it back then before all of us even really existed. And so I want to leave you guys with the question here. When was the last time you gave love with no direct benefit? Like you were just loving someone to love them just because. You didn't benefit anything from it. It didn't give you anything. If anything, it was actually inconvenient. I want you to think about that moment, because manipulation wrapped in romance is still manipulation, just prettier. Now I want to talk about what non-transactional real love looks like. And I feel like this is such an important thing for us to discuss because statistically speaking, our recent generations have, a stronger demographics of people who grew up in a single parent household or grew up in a home where the parents were divorced. That is starting to become the above average. Like, that's supposed to be normal. Like, it's our new norm when it comes to children and their home dynamics. And with that being the case, that means that we have a lot of adults who have never actually seen what a healthy, real relationship looks like. And because of that, we now have a community of individuals who go out into the world unhealed with a lack of knowledge of what a real connection looks like, because it was not, shown to them as young kids. It was not, they didn't have an example they could compare to. And so because of that, it's important that we discuss these things and we figure out what is the real pieces that make for a good, strong, healthy relationship. In reality, love is actually just freedom. It's respecting choices, even if that choice is leaving. Its spiritual philosophy is, kind of similar to what they believe in Buddhism. So in Buddhism, they have something that's called metta, which means unconditional, loving kindness, and it has no price tag. That's kind of the meaning of metta. Here, we're used to saying metta when it comes to technology, but in Buddhism, metta is actually a symbolism for unconditional love and kindness, which I think is quite an interesting parallel when you examine our culture, westernized culture, as well as our cultures in other areas in other parts of the world. Guys, can you see this? My cat is like just getting all up in my space. He does this every time I try to film. Guess we're keeping him here. A perfect example is like when you love somebody during their hardest moments. You're not getting anything back from that. You're providing unconditional love. So people who are there for you in your weakest moments, in your dark points, who check in on you, like those are the real ones. Those are the real people. Especially because, it's like we've normalized dealing with pain on our own, when in reality, that's actually not a healthy response to struggle and pain. That's why therapy is so healing, and why people suggest it is because holding in your emotions and your feelings and those things by yourself is actually damaging to your self-growth and your self-evolution. But because you've had this fear-based mentality for so long, your mind has created these protective mechanisms that include narratives that may not be all the way true in order to protect your decision of being standoffish. So as opposed to accepting the reality that really people just suck, like, people hurt each other, bad things happen, you're not the one to blame. If you don't accept that fact, you start pushing away the rest of the world because you're convinced that everybody will mistreat you the way that others did. But that's a very self-limiting belief, because it's forcing you to miss out on your true potential. It's forcing you to miss out on your true connections and valuable memories that you could have made. But because of the fact that you had these insecurities of not feeling good enough for the life that you truly deserve, you subconsciously hold yourself back, which is what we see all the time, is self-sabotage. So many people are starting to accidentally sabotage their lives, their opportunities, doing all these reckless things that jeopardize their jobs, their profession, the things that they claim to want in love. And it's not because of laziness or lack of motivation. It's because the individual themselves subconsciously does not believe in their capabilities. Because when you don't believe in yourself, when you feel like you have nothing to lose, there's two kinds of people. There's the ones who become hopeless in that, and they're like, okay, well, I just got to accept where I'm at. And then there's the ones who look at that situation and say, I'm going to climb myself out, even if I have to crawl at first, because crawling is better than staying still in a place that keeps hurting me. And people always act like environment's the only factor, but it's not, because your mentality is your environment. It's the environment you bring with you everywhere you go. Even if you're not in the same environment, that old environment that hurt you still impacts the way you show up in these new ones. So in reality, the environment you now carry is yourself. You are your own home. You are your own groundedness. You are your own life. And until you accept that fact, until you accept that who you are as a person is enough to exist and become successful, then you're not going to be able to grow. It's one thing to have insecurities, but it's another thing to be so insecure that you create false narratives in your head that convince you that you yourself are undeserving of love, compassion, care, your dreams coming true, all these things. Because trust me, when you try to push away those who matter, when you try to push away those who are real, you are extending and prolonging your success, prolonging your happiness. Because what people don't realize is that the wealthy get wealthy through connections. They have friendships, and again, they have friendships through legacy. So it's not like casual banter. I mean, these individuals are sharing their finances and building long-term wealth and connections. That's not casual. But they tell everybody else not to value relationships, because if you start to value relationships too much, you will no longer value your job. That's why everything is so expensive and jobs don't pay that much, because these companies want you guys to be overworking at their facilities, making them money for a super cheap price so that they can, up their profit margins, make more money for less money, essentially. Yeah, that's what they want. And they don't want you to try and figure it out, because if you figure it out, it means you're no longer an employee, you're now turning into a competitor, and that's not what they want. They don't want more competitors in the industry. So what do? They push you down, make it harder for you to succeed, make it harder for you to get to the place where you want to go. And because they've pushed you down so hard, it made you believe that isolation was the answer, when it isn't. Scientifically, biologically, neuroscientifically, in all of the ways, it is actually not healthy or normal. That is a response that we have to stress. Our bodies as human beings do better in community, do better in a single partnership where we have that primary attachment figure. When we are younger, our primary attachment figure tends to be our parents, one or both of them. But once we grow up and we become adults, we now have the ability to choose who our primary attachment is. And typically that is going to be your partner. That's why I think it's interesting that we don't value relationships as much as I think we should, because who you spend your time with makes you the average of they say that you are the average of who you spend your time with. So if you're spending time with individuals who are not actually serving you, not actually fueling your capacity and potential, they're not doing anything for you. A real true romantic partner questions your logic. They make you question your own mentality. They make you question your set of belief systems. They make you question all of the narratives that you created to protect the version of you are right now. And it's like people do not understand that neuroplasticity causes our brain to expand when we are faced in new situations. So when people feel uncomfortable, when you feel that discomfort in your bones and you're like, this situation is scary, your body may try and trigger, this is a threat, so you push things away, when in reality, it's your brain literally expanding and getting larger through neuroplasticity. And in Buddhism, they talk about how because you're constantly growing, constantly evolving, constantly turning into a new person, once you get into that new version of yourself, you don't know yet how to control that body. So your body decides to label it as a threat, even when it's not. It's actually you being pushed into a situation, into a world, into a perception, a reality, a lifetime, a trajectory that is meant for you, but different than where you've been, different from what you've known. And because of that, the discomfort is your brain literally expanding. So when you say, I don't want to try that because what if I lose it? I don't want to date this person because what if it all falls apart and they break my heart like someone else did? What if I don't want to connect with people because what if they hurt me again like I was hurt when I was younger? And I get that mentality, but it's self-limiting. It's self-limiting. And it's self-limiting because you may project, right? Like people may project an energy where they're like, I'm just too cool for school. Like I'm so good, whatever. But deep down inside, people who project that energy tend to have deep abandonment wounds. They feel like they have to project a certain energy in order to receive love, acceptance, and validation. So when someone comes in and loves the parts of them they felt was unacceptable, it triggers a threat response, when in reality, it's your body shifting into a new perception, into a new reality, because you are now faced with a version of yourself you have never seen. Because a proper partner will push you. They will push you past your limits, because that's the only way it's possible to grow and to succeed, is if you're being pushed past your limits, past your capacity, past your bandwidth. But when you prolong the situation by cutting off these individuals, too soon, then you miss out on a massive part of your journey's story that could have been beautiful, even if it didn't last. I understand that we're afraid of heartbreak, we're afraid of vulnerability, but it's like, guys, how much traumatizing things have you been in your life that you have survived, came out of that an incredible person, and you're still alive, still here standing? Some people are out there, they've tried to harm themselves and take their lives, and you're telling me you can't handle a heartbreak? Honey, you have gone through much worse than somebody telling you no. If that person doesn't see you as valuable, trust me, there's someone else that will. So stop trying to force yourself into a box that no longer fits and accept the reality that you deserve more than what you've had. You deserve more than what you believe. You deserve more than where you are right now. And until you accept that, you will never reach that next level. And even when you have a taste of that next level, you'll freak out because your body will trigger a threat response due to your traumatized mentality of how things should go, a rigid mindset of how, connecting to other people, bonding to other people goes. But again, you miss out. Because the only way for us to grow is through connection. The only way for us to truly heal those bonding wounds is through connection. We don't heal single, we heal in a relationship. That's partially why they're so hard, because it causes you to have to acknowledge and come to acceptance and term and just, take responsibility for the traumas and the bad things and the hardships that have happened to you, because a real partner will test all of those traumas. And a lot of times in our daily, modern day of dating, like people think that that's a red flag. And I'm like, okay, so you'll stay with somebody who actually harms you, who cheats on you, who lies to you, who does all these terrible things, right? But you're going to turn down someone who's simple and secure and structured and all these things because you don't think you deserve that. Then you turn around, go to other people who aren't even half your weight in gold, then get shocked when they don't stay around, when they don't last. And it's because you are literally picking up things that are no longer serving you. It's like picking up trash and trying to turn that into a feast, okay? And it's not to say that the individuals themselves are actually trash, like they're bad people, they are less respectful or less important. It's to say that they no longer serve you. So no matter how nice, kind, whatever it is, that person no longer serves who you are becoming. You need to be with somebody who matches who you're becoming. So whenever you're with a partner that you feel like you don't deserve, it's not that you don't deserve that partner. It's that you're in disbelief that someone like them would care for you in a place where you feel like you are at the bottom. And because you don't feel like you're deserving, you force others to leave. And I never understood that. I don't like that our culture is kind of set up like this. I think it's really important that we start to actually value connections way more. I mean, this is literally how they're doing things. It's divide and conquer. Now there's like a partial civil wars going on. Like, this is just crazy, dude. Like, we can't, like, this is what they want because we stay distracted. Like, for everybody else, it's about control, it's about power, it's about money. And they will teach you the things that you want to hear, that you think is going to make sense. But half the people telling you these notes didn't even use the systems they're preaching to you. And the reason why is they don't benefit from that. So instead, they sell a dream that requires you to climb up a ladder, aka the corporate ladder. And because you're so busy focused on climbing up that ladder, you forget to realize that you have a life to live, that you have a world outside of this, and a whole beautiful universe outside of this that you could have. But you're so focused on climbing up an invisible ladder that was created for your downfall. So it's like, okay, fine. People will post on the gram these quotes and all these things and talk about how they want to be rich and do all the things. But it's like, look, you will never get to that point on your own. Even if you have like a crew of people who are all successful and doing shit. Or if you have a really good partner who's also ambitious, who also has drive, who's also on that grind, you need to find someone who matches your energy and stop accepting less than who you are. Just because you feel like you don't deserve someone doesn't mean that's the truth. It means you need to accept the fact that you are more valuable than you think. You need to accept the fact that your presence brings more joy than you think. That your presence means more than you think. It's not to say that you don't think you add value, but you're not yet aware of how much value you truly add. And people can project fake confidence. It's performative confidence. A lot of people, they have depression but are really good at masking it. So it's like, we have so many people walking around unhappy, sad, depressed, going at home, probably crying, doing things to hurt themselves, drinking all the time. Like, there are people who are seriously hurting. And instead of focusing on that, instead of focusing on healing, we push each other away further. And that, to me, is counterproductive, counterintuitive to what we all need as a society. And it will bring us absolutely nowhere. Because at the end of the day, connection is the key to everything. I mean, seriously. There's not, like, people keep looking at like an oligarchy where there's like a 1%al people who rule everything, which is kind of where our country is right now. It's kind of in an oligarchic society. You know, you have like the 1% and they control everybody else, right? But the irony of that is perception. That's what people don't understand. Perception is more valuable than reality itself. So when people perceive individuals, the 1%, as powerful, they don't fight back. Not because they can't, but because they're convinced that those individuals' power, invisible power, is more powerful than their reality. Just think about this. We have 1% of people who are actually successful in controlling this country. What is the rest of the 99% doing? Complaining, broke, upset, sad, fighting each other? Dude, we're the 99%. We overvalue them. They don't stand a chance. They don't stand a freaking chance, dude. Because guess what? The 99% also includes our soldiers, our doctors, the people who make this entire country a country. The people who are the backbones of everything in our society are on the 99 percentile. Okay? The 99 percentile. Even the top paying professions in the world don't make half as much as the people who are in the 1 percentile, like the Elon Musks and all those stupid ass idiots who do absolutely nothing for people and just take money like literally nonsensically for no reason other than the fact that they're super greedy, selfish, and self-serving. And it's terrible that we all think, oh my God, that's power. Let's support that. Like, you guys are feeding into the very society you say is hurting you. That makes no sense. Wake up to your own actions. Take accountability for the things that you're doing. Stop pretending like you don't have any power and stand up for yourself and others and realize that you do. 99% to 1%, we take over. It's statistics, honey. So we can look at the oligarchy. We can say, oh, the 1%, they're so lucky. They have all the power. They're amazing. But they don't. Because all of the power they created is on the side that they disrespect. And they tell you guys, they give breadcrumbs and convince you it's a feast. So when they serve you even a plate of food, you think it's something special, but it's not. Congratulations, we got a few of our rights. Congratulations, we got a few laws in place. But what change actually happens? If we're already seeing that people break laws all the time, do things that are unkind, then it's like we need to start realizing that we hold a lot more value than people think. And also, I would like to remind people that minorities actually make up the majority of our population within this country. So if there is racism or systemic issues that we don't like, we have way more power than we think, okay? If statistically speaking, there are more minorities in this country than the individuals who tend to be racist, right? Again, we still overpower. There's a larger percentage of people. The problem is that the people aren't coming together because they're convinced that we need to be separated, okay? And it's like the more they convince us of that, the more they take us away from community, the more they're able to manipulate, the more they're able to do things. It's literally why divide and conquer is a real thing. That's what happens. And then they sell you these master classes, sell you these things, try and make you feed into and believe into their process of what's going on because they want to make money from mentorships. They want to make money from their master classes. They want to make money from their weird little seminars that actually add no value in reality, but it allows for a bunch of rich people and people who hope to be rich one day to come together and talk about nothing having to do with real business, because guess what? Most people are fake and gatekeep, so they won't help you anyway. Because guess who taught you that? The very people who trusted all of their own circle, right? The people who trusted their own people are the same people who tell you not to trust anyone. Think about that, right? You can't keep listening to what people say. Actions speak louder than words. Don't listen. Don't read the books they're writing you. Watch their history. Read their stories. Figure out how they gained power. Look at who they were in reality, not the versions of them they project. You want to learn how these big dudes are making money, how these big dudes got success? Go read about their actual history through the lens of someone else, and you will see the difference between what they project and what they went through. And there's a reason for that, because they don't want other people to be their competitors. It makes their life easier and they profit more. So instead of constantly evolving and creating a company and a business that just grows and does good because it's a good company, they sell us shit products that they buy for like 99 cents, upcharge it $30, and then tell us that it's normal. And it's not. You guys are literally paying $50 for a product that could be bought in China for $2. Are we seriously going to call that successful? Like, no, to me, that's not success. To me, that's just sad. It's just sad because a lot of people are convinced that they don't have power. And because of that, we all have no power. We all lose out. We all miss out on things because people give up on themselves. They give up on humanity. And doing so, they make this society worse. That's why I'm like, be kind to everybody. It's a small act of kindness. Those little gestures, though, it really, really adds up and makes for a better world. Being kind to someone else can inspire them to be kind to someone else, and it keeps going, the butterfly effect. And the more positivity we project out into the world, it adds up. For us, for others, it's better, because when you walk around in this negative mindset, it's not good for you or any of the people around you, and you miss out on opportunities because people don't want to be around somebody who has negative energy. People want to be around somebody with light, inner light, peace, happiness, success, security, because a person like that is reliable, and reliability is like the number one foundation to success. Nobody will pay you, nobody will hire you if they cannot trust you, even if it's at a shallow lens. If you're an entertainer, make sure that you're doing things properly, because if you don't, you won't get hired again. Okay? And that's just what it is. They'll take the person who's less qualified if that individual shows up, okay, properly how they're supposed to and does a good job and has a great personality. They're choosing the one who's maybe not as great but shows up. Okay? And that's just how it goes. Like, science literally talks about this. It's the science of altruism. And studies have shown that acts of unconditional kindness increase oxytocin and dopamine for both the giver and receiver. And I feel like I definitely experienced this firsthand because I'm somebody who likes to volunteer and I give back to the homeless. I do beach cleanups and like try to do things with different organizations and just volunteer, like do things, you know? And I thought it was interesting because I always felt like it was really like a great moment even for me, you know. Sometimes it gives you so much gratitude because you see what life is like for other people, like what they have to deal with, what they have to go through, what they don't have and what you have. And it really just changes your perception on life. It changes your reality. You know, you can't truly be kind if you don't understand darkness. It's just not possible for yourself or for others, but especially if you don't have empathy and compassion. People who have no empathy and compassion, I don't think they truly love themselves. I think they just simply exist on this world and they do what they think needs to be done. And they try to win the life's game in the way that they think they need to win the life's game. But they're just actually living. Like all these big dudes with money and all this stuff, like I kind of feel bad for them. They're not living. Half the time they have the most traumatic childhoods because of the fact that they get mistreated the same way they mistreat others. Like, we only know, what we've been through, what we've been modeled before. And that's why I'm always like, well, if you're super wealthy, you've never even seen the streets a day in your life, it's even more vital that you do. It's even more vital that you go hand out food on the streets and see how the other half is living, because it will change your life forever. It will change your life forever. It will change your life forever. I swear. There are so many times when like I hold back tears because these people are telling me their stories, and it's just so heartbreaking to hear what they have to endure on the streets in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. It's just very upsetting. You know, I'm like, I don't want to cry right now, but it's very upsetting because I don't like watching people hurt. So I try to make a difference, but you can only do so much. So that's why I try to encourage others to also give back, to do what they can, because this is our community, this is our reality, you know, and you'll support and do all these things for companies that don't even care about you, that don't even do anything, but you can't even help another human being when they're down. And to me, like, that's just so sad. It speaks to where our society is at. And I feel like when love is real, it doesn't need to be earned, it just needs to be received. And so many people have a hard time receiving love, especially men who have experienced negative dating histories or just men in general, really. And that's why I want to say you are not unlovable. You never were. You were just taught to trade yourself in pieces. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching my video and listening to my Spotify if you're on Spotify. I really encourage you guys to follow me on Instagram, on all my other social media platforms. Instagram is where I'm most active. I would love for you guys to send me messages, let me know what you think of my podcast. And I definitely want to have people in the future. I keep telling people this, but it's difficult because the topics that I talk about are extremely deep, and not many people want to go that deep while on video anymore, which is kind of sad. Tells you a lot of things. I know there are people out there, but I haven't met them yet. So I thank you guys so much for listening to my lectures. I hope that they can be inspiring or motivating, or, you know, you can learn something from them. And I really appreciate the support from everyone. Even though I don't have a large audience just yet, I still appreciate all the people who do watch, all the people who do care, because it does actually mean a lot to me. It helps to grow my job, helps to grow my dreams, and all of those things. So I continue to thank you all very much. And I hope that I will see you guys in my next video or in my next Spotify. So let's get straight into the closing diary entry. Dear Diary, I finally see it clearly. Most of us weren't unlovable. We were just taught the wrong definition of love. We were taught that love must be traded for safety, for approval, for closeness. That it must be earned, bargained for, or constantly proven. But real love doesn't bargain. It doesn't demand or contort yourself to be worthy. It doesn't hold your heart hostage for good behavior. Real love is not performance. It's presence. It's not possession. It's freedom. And I think the bravest thing any of us can do in this world is to stop selling ourselves in pieces and start giving love whole, without price tags, without contracts, without conditions. Because if love keeps a scoreboard, it isn't love. It's survival. And if it's survival you're practicing, you'll never taste the fullness of being chosen freely. So here's my vow diary. I don't want to be anyone's trade. I want to be their truth. I want to love in a way that doesn't cost anything, but somehow gives everything. XOXO. LJ. Always do a happy dance at the end. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next podcast episode. Peace on the streets. Oh.